Good morning, everybody. Happy hump day to you on this April 30th, 2025. I have all your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And on today's episode, we'll continue to talk about Bill Belichick, his much younger girlfriend, and the drama that went down on their interview this past Sunday. There's actually more to the story that meets the eye, so we're going to continue to cover that. Plus, Beyonce's got a tour. Tickets are not selling well. Katy Perry's like, I can relate. We'll discuss both of those tours coming up. Yeah, not a good time for discretionary spending as so many people are stocking up on food and preparing for what might be a very bizarre once-in-a-lifetime summer. I'm also going to discuss Blake Lively. Now, she got into a spat with a paparazzi several years ago, and we're going to begin to break that down. Without a Crystal Ball on YouTube has the full story, but we'll discuss that, plus the PR people for Baldoni throwing massive shade at the person who's at the center of this whole hundreds of $million lawsuit. So stick around for that. So much to cover. It's like drinking water out of a fire hose with all of the different side stories going on there. And Trump is at his 100 days. I know it feels like 100 years, but he's at the 100-day mark. And now people are wondering, did DOGE fail? And the China versus USA tariffs. China says we are not negotiating. USA is saying, well, we're kind of talking. And they're saying, no, we're not. So we'll break that down. And also a conversation about due process and deportation as we continue to parse through the absurdities of modern political life and life in general here in this wild country. So all these stories and more, it's all coming up right now on The Rush. Okay, before we get into these stories, I did want to open up and talk about maternity leave. The idea that a company will pay you while you take time after having a baby, a very loving and also very traumatic event for the body, right? It's a miracle what happens. I mean, I don't know personally, but I've seen up in and I'm like, holy cow, that's incredible. But my algorithm on social media is flooded with videos of mothers who are faced with that inevitable decision where they have to go back to work and they have to put their baby in daycare. And look, if that's a choice you want to make, I say do what you want to do. But so many people are forced to make that choice. And I've been talking about it on my Instagram, DNeals, on my Instagram, DNEALZ. I've been talking about it. And I have to tell you, the amount of DMs I receive from mothers, especially out of the country, that look at this as such a barbaric thing going on in the United States, that we are separating mother from child, and maybe father too, but very much the bond that a mother and a child has in those early days, months, and even their first couple of years is a bond that nobody else can replicate, right? Nobody else. And I don't think that's kind of crazy to say. Now, as a father, I've been so lucky. In this last year, my baby's turning 1 this week. His birthday's on May 6th. Mine's May 1st tomorrow, so we'll have a live stream tomorrow at noon. But I've been so lucky to work from home, to have my wife at home. And even with that, like last night, I still didn't get much sleep. And the baby has great days and then some tough days. I can't imagine what it is like for a mom to have to be a mom, which is a full-time job, and also deliberate about going back to work. And I'll just say this. We live in one of the richest, if not the richest countries to ever exist. We have the money in our country. We do. With the right tax system, we have the money that can afford moms to stay home for the first year. We absolutely have it. Other countries do it. We can absolutely do that. And I'm going to continue to talk about this moving forward because I do want to live in that world where people don't have to gently weep in their office or wherever they work because they have to go back right away in due time. But that's such a special moment people will never get back. I actually go to a Starbucks in my local town here, and there's a lady that works there, and she'll see me with my son, and she'll say she just had a baby too, and she had to go back pretty early. And then I think of my former boss, who I would kind of walk into her office and see that she was kind of like composing herself through the tears. And it's a serious subject. My mom was a single mom, and she had to go back to work early on, and she had family that could help support her at the time, but. Anyway, I'm just reiterating to folks out there that we'll continue to share resources and push for politicians to do what I believe is a vote that would go so well across political lines, because we all have wives, moms, we are some of them, and most of us have been in that position where I think we can figure it out to make it a reality that we have guaranteed parental leave across our country. Let's move it on to our first story. I'm going to cover Dave Portnoy on Barstool. They were talking about the CBS Morning interview with Bill Belichick. Of course, Barstool, originally a Boston-based blog, and they cover the Patriots and Bill Belichick's 48-year age gap with his girlfriend. She could be his granddaughter, to be quite honest. And the interview involved basically they called out that the girlfriend was interrupting the interview, and they're saying it was actually way worse than what they shared. And there's many theories as to what the hell actually went down. Have a listen.
The rumors, what is she, what is he, why don't you just have a story about where you met, by the way?
They do. It's on a plane.
Yeah.
Well, but
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like the coach thing.
Either say that or say you met at a Patriots event, but do not go, we're not talking about this, because now it's a whole thing.
The guy who conducted the interview DM me, Dan. He's like, I'll go on PMT.
Oh, all right, let's have him.
Do you want him?
Yeah.
So this is the Streisand effect. The question is, why did Bill Belichick's girlfriend not want to discuss how they met? Now, the story they've run with is that they met on a plane. But now, I guess the running theory is that, well, Bill Belichick flies private, and it probably was on Robert Kraft's plane. What was she doing on that plane? Some theories are that, well, maybe she was working in an intimate capacity for some people on the flight. I'm not saying that's true. And if she were a sex worker, I'd be all for it. I'd say, you know what? You're an adult. Do whatever the hell you want with your body. I think sex work should be legalized. I think prostitution should be legalized. I think it's ridiculous that it's not, because then you have to deal with very dangerous situations. Do what you want within a general sort of agreed upon scope. Those are my beliefs there. But either way, that's the running rumor that, oh my gosh, they're making this situation so much worse by not addressing it. How the heck is he? And people are calling it elder abuse, that she's taking advantage of him, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, he's getting whatever he wants out of that relationship. All right, well, let's move it along. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour kicks off with thousands of cheap tickets up for sale. That's not a good thing. Have a listen.
It's opening night of the Cowboy Carter tour, and you could go on Ticketmaster resale right now. You could go on StubHub and buy a nosebleed seat for $50. In fact, one of our photographers did that. He was here, he bought some tickets, he's going to come back and go tonight. I mean, that's really unheard of, and I think it's sort of unclear why. Is it this dynamic pricing from Ticketmaster? That's what a lot of folks here are sort of blaming. Or is there sort of an economic story here, a tightening of the belt, so to speak? We've been covering the past few years, the Taylor Swift concert, the Renaissance tour, people spending thousands of dollars to go to those tours.
Yeah, I gotta say, Taylor Swift is so lucky that her tour and the whole Eras Tour went on before the current crisis, right? There's reports that there might be up to a 90% chance of a recession looming based on this bogus tariff war and all of that. Plus, does Beyonce just command the crowd she used to? You know, people grow up, and are they still going to attend? Or is it because it's maybe more country focused and not hip hop? I have no idea. But I have to tell you, Katy Perry is getting raked over the coals for her performance. I'm just going to share some of it right here. It is very bizarre. Look, I think if you gave me 8 hours to prepare, I could come up with a better routine than Katy Perry. It actually makes my hips hurt. But look, as I'm turning 40 tomorrow, if you haven't noticed, I do understand, like your joints don't move the way they used to. But what is going on here with the tour? It's very bizarre, and it's just her opening week, so I'm going to hold off judgment, although I just did judge her. But hey, there it is. One of the pop stars out there doing her thing and falling down. Ow, it just looks like it hurts. Is her this is sponsored by Tylenol. All right, so let's move it on from that. Coming up next, we're going to discuss the Sydney Sweeney. I'm going to link Sydney Sweeney to Blake Lively through her co-star Brendan Sklenar. This story next. Today's podcast is sponsored by Rula. Telehealth has made mental health care more convenient and accessible for millions of people. Rula is on a mission to make high-quality mental health care from a licensed professional easy and affordable. They take most major insurance plans, and the average copay is only $15 per session. You can now get the quality care you need when you need it at a price you can afford. Rula is committed to supporting you and staying with you every step of the way on your mental health journey. From finding the right therapist to helping you schedule appointments and monitoring your progress, Rula is there to help. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to Rula.com/rush hour to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Go to RULA.com/rush hour and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. Well, you know me, I love a good Sydney Sweeney story. I loved her with Glenn Powell. There was all these rumors when their movie was coming out that they were dating, and of course Sydney Sweeney afterwards broke up with her fiance. Well, now she was spotted at Coachella with her, I guess, upcoming co-star Brendan Sklenar. There they are. Brendan Sklenar, of course, starred in It Ends With Us with Blake Lively. I have to tell you, regardless of what you think of Brendan Sklenar and his sort of piece of whatever he had to deal with. Of course, he went out and initially sided with Blake Lively and then changed his mind. Whatever you think of that, the TV show 1923, I just watched the finale. It's a good show. I mean, you guys got to watch this. I believe it's only 2 seasons. It is a fantastic show. I mean, a wild ending. And of course, Brendan Sklenar stars in it. And I don't know. I think it's good. Like I said, regardless of what you think about him, he's not going anywhere. I mean, unless there's any information that comes out that he was coordinating with Blake Lively, my thought is, like most actors out there looking out for themselves, he thought he was on the right side of a story and then, oopsie, found out he wasn't. In other Blake Lively news, Daily Mail is reporting that they think it might be very hard for future actors to want to work with her. They said this: it's probably nerve-wracking for any future co-star of Blake's to touch her, considering she accused her It Ends With Us director, leading man Justin Baldoni, of harassing her on set last year. Yeah, let's just say this. I think anyone who works with her moving forward will keep their cell phone rolling and a possible GoPro camera. You know, one time, I'm not going to say the specifics, but I was supposed to interview someone within the last couple years, I'll say. And this person was so toxic, and it was supposed to be during a work trip in Vegas, that I considered running an extra GoPro camera, like a wide shot of the entire room, just because I didn't want them to ever accuse me of something. And look, it's rare, but you do have to cover yourself in this crazy world we live in. And if you are going to do a movie with Blake Lively, just make sure everybody signed off on the intimacy coordinator scenes beforehand. I mean, you know, lest you get into a sticky situation like Justin Baldoni. All right, in other Blake Lively news, there really has been so much going on. I haven't covered this, but defendant Jennifer Abel has an amended answer to the first amended complaint. This is, okay, Jennifer Abel, stick with me, was working for Joneswork as the PR person, the point person for Justin Baldoni in It Ends With Us. Justin Baldoni loved working with Jennifer Abel. They broke her off from Joneswork. Was it a breach of contract? Maybe, maybe not. But when Jennifer Abel left Joneswork, owned by Stephanie Jones, took her phone, and that's where they got all of the text messages that later proved, or that they believed proved, that there was a smear campaign. And that's what led to the New York Times article, the sham subpoena. Everything runs through them. Well, now, in some juicy tidbits, we have Jennifer Abel throwing massive shade. Now, look, it's an 85-page document, so I'm not going to read all of it for you, but on paragraph 37, this is what she said about her boss. Jones personally interfered with Jennifer Abel's competent handling of her duties, including by attempting to insert herself with poorly timed negative communications to the press and public that were discovered by plaintiff's own publicist, Leslie Sloan. Jones' blunders clumsily disrupted a putative truce with Sloan by communicating negatively with the media about plaintiff, exacerbating negative press and public attention on plaintiff by adding fuel to negative stories of a feud with plaintiff. Jones' incompetent handling of communications with the press only caused negative stories to circulate further and attract greater attention. Yeah, as far as what we can see, Stephanie Jones not only alerted Blake Lively that she had these crazy text messages and that she was going to sue Abel and all these other things. But also before that, she disrupted a truce that they had, right? Blake Lively's side and Justin Baldoni's side said no negative press, no planting stories, we're going to be fine. And then like a Cuban Missile Crisis, Stephanie Jones was like, all right, but what about this? And then literally the second after the truce, the text messages show she immediately violated it. So as far as I'm concerned, she likes mess. She likes mess. She also said, upon information and belief, which again means it's a rumor, they don't have any of the proof, JonesWorks was not named as a defendant in plaintiff's lawsuit because Jones and JonesWorks conspired with plaintiff Blake Lively to exploit Jennifer Abel's private communications that Jones and JonesWorks stole and unlawfully intercepted for the purpose of harming JonesWorks' former clients, Wayfair, Heath, and Baldoni. So again, I know it's complicated. There's lots to the story. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an educator, but I'm trying my best to break this down for you as now we wait for the judge to rule on so many different aspects of who gets dismissed and who doesn't. It's an absolute melee out there. In other news, and boy, is this big news, I have to recommend everybody go watch Without a Crystal Ball's YouTube video. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have done this before, how they tried to send an innocent man to prison. So Without a Crystal Ball has the paparazzi footage. I'm not going to share it with you right now, but it's pretty wild stuff. And the accusation is that they lied to police about what went down with the paparazzi. And after 2 years of trials, it looks like the charges ended up being withdrawn against the paparazzo. So again, pretty wild stuff, but to withdraw charges means they really didn't have any of the proof. And again, lots of court papers to sift through there. So you guys should be pretty busy today as you cover all of that. All right. That's all your celebrity news. This afternoon, we'll have a little bit more on upcoming Bachelor in Paradise, so you'll have to stick around for that. But several Trump stories to report on his first 100 days. This first one is absolutely wild. What I'm about to show you is absolutely wild. So we have Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Right now, he's sitting in a prison in El Salvador, even though he's never been convicted of a crime. Trump insists repeatedly that Kilmar Abrego Garcia literally had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. This is what's so crazy. Donald Trump, of course, tweeted this out, a photo of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and he's saying, look, it says MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. But if you're listening on the audio, on YouTube, I'm showing this. The photos that they showed were tattoos of a marijuana leaf, a smiley face, a skull, and a few other things. And then superimposed on top of the photo says MS-13. Now, it says that clearly to show what the representation of the tattoo means. Nobody, and I mean nobody, thinks, other than Donald Trump, that it actually says MS-13 on the tattoo. Just making this one of the craziest stories ever. Have a listen to this.
Wasn't a member of a gang, and then they looked, and on his knuckles he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Terry.
We laugh because we cannot cry. Why is our president like a boomer grandfather? No offense to boomers out there, or maybe the silent generation, whatever generation it is. Yeah, it's like the silent generation. This is like trying to explain what the Facebook.com is to our mothers 20 years ago. This is ridiculous. He goes, no, listen. There's an MS-13 tattooed. Again, there's the photo. It does not. The MS-13 is supposed to be a representation of the symbols of the tattoos. Oh boy.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped.
This is me talking to my grandparents.
You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right, we'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
Because you want me to show you the picture. Trump, oh my, we gotta impeach. We have to, as a country. What are we doing? We are the laughingstock of the entire world. Even the UFOs in New Jersey left. They're like, now we got to go. They're out. No UFO sightings. They've abandoned us. What the hell? He goes, Terry, I didn't know you, so I gave you a chance. This is your big shot. Listen, justice for Terry here that he's not backing down.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's fake
he was photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're there
in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservis.
We'll take a look at that, sir.
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
He goes, it's contested. Oh, Terry. I'm so glad Terry held his ground on this one. He does not have Times New Roman MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. Holy hell. What the reality are we a part of? Now, I got to be honest and tell you that last clip was crazier than I thought. I mean, I'm often like, yeah, I get it. He thinks, that you can blow up a hurricane with a nuclear, but there's certain things, but I was literally befuddled as I watched that. I try not to, watch these beforehand because I want to give you my honest reaction. If you're listening on audio only, you got to go check that out. That was insane. What a ride that was. Well, now the conversation about due process. They go, well, can you at least give him due process? Have a listen.
The law requires that every single person who is going to be deported gets a hearing first. Do you acknowledge that?
I'll have to ask the lawyers about that. All I can say is this. If you're going to have 21 million people, and if we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't. Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law is the law, sir. The law is the law, and you're
the law doesn't say anything about trials.
No, not trials, hearings. I said
These
hearings.
people came in, they're not citizens. They came in illegally. They came into our country illegally. We have to get them out.
There's a legal process.
And by the way, this is the same sort of thing you hear in the comment sections. You post a video on Instagram, hi Instagram, and then people say, they came in illegally, you can send them out illegally. That's not, you don't get to choose when the Constitution works for you. You need to stand up for the Constitution, even if it's for your enemies. I mean, the Boston bomber, the Boston Marathon bomber got a fair trial. The terrorists from 9/11 got a trial. It's what you do in the United States. You give people their due process. And again, Trump says, well, there's too many to do that. Well, what? What are you talking about?
Process for that.
I can't, sure, and we follow the legal process. I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out, and we have to get them out fast.
Really bad guys, but in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have...
We get them a process, just not a due process. The process is we kick them out and send them into a gulag in El Salvador. This is wild. And it's been so telling, really, I think more so looking at people's, either people that are not being intellectually honest or people that are not being intellectual, that just don't understand the sort of rules in our country. You do not only get due process when you're an American citizen. If you exist standing as a human being in our country, that's what you get. That's what, and we do that because who the hell is Trump or somebody else to say, no, that's a bad guy, get him out? Surely. But let's send that through the judge. Otherwise, we get situations like the student at Tufts University, a PhD student, who writes an op-ed protesting a war, and she gets sent out without due process. It's ridiculous.
Have to get them out, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans.
They get whatever my lawyers say.
Right. All right, let's talk about the Well,
I like this guy. I'm giving him major props for holding his own here. And again, the conversation of due process continues. I'll play this real quick because, listen, you have a conservative commentator on CNN, Scott Jennings, seems to not even understand what the Constitution is all about.
Things could be true. Number one, I delineate between American citizens and everyone else. If you're a U.S. citizen, I put you in a different category.
On due process, that's not a distinction that the law makes.
Then if you've come here and broken our laws and committed violent acts or murdered and raped and whatever, I put you in a different category.
When it comes to the law and due process, that is not a distinction.
Well, can you believe this? He's a commentator on a cable news show, and he says, well, I believe we should. That's not how it works. And here I have other, content creators, like unfriending me because I'm standing by due process and be, oh, well, you're just being a stickler, Dave. Yes. If there's anything in our world you need to be a stickler about, it is holding up the Constitution. Oh, Dave, you're just calling balls and strikes. Exactly. This is where you do it. This is where you test, it's like when they build a new stadium and you got to flush every toilet at the same time to make sure that the shit doesn't blow up at the 50-yard line, of the Katy Perry concert, right? That's what you do. You need to test the system during the times of high pressure. There's so many stories I can't even get into right now that we'll have to save for later. But the Chinese, let's get into it. A reporter asked about the Chinese. They say, look, the Chinese are telling us that they are not negotiating. And of course, here we have a billionaire telling us, no, it's fine. Treasurer Secretary, or no, excuse me, he's not a billionaire. He's a half a billionaire. He's only worth between $500 million to $1 billion. But watch as he dodges this question.
The Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. You recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that, over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days to show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly. And even if there is a drop in the tariffs, that they could lose 5 million jobs.
All right, so now I guess they're concerned for the Chinese. We don't want them to lose jobs. You started this. This wasn't a the only way that this was a natural disaster is the fact that Donald Trump was even born. That was the natural disaster as we see it right now, because this is a self-inflicted wound. And the fact that they're saying like, no, we care so much about them.
So remember that we are the deficit country. They sell almost 5 times more goods to us than we sell to them. So the onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
The onus will be on them to take off which tariffs? You put the tariffs on them. And I hate this idea like, well, we buy all of this from them. Yeah, we buy a lot of their stuff, our country. And how many of the people that buy things are then businesses that then sell it to Americans? Like how many businesses make their money off of buying? I know my family's got a business, and a lot of the products that they buy for their business come from Asian countries. That's where the products come from. That's where they're made. And I'm afraid to ask my MAGA family members how tough it is right now, because I don't want to dunk in their face, because they're clearly seeing the fact that they don't have the goods that they need.
Saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty again of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
And you know what? I believe calling the Chinese peasants like J.D. Vance did is going to make it so that they will take this to the grave. And we don't have that sort of time that they do. We've got elections coming up. We've got CEOs and billionaires and all of the corporate class all saying, get rid of these tariffs. Now, just because they say that doesn't mean I think that's always a good idea to listen to them. But the pressure is mounting. And let me tell you this right now. China isn't blinking. Last story I wanted to cover today is Dave Smith, comedian, content creator. He is a libertarian, and he was a Trump guy, and he was all about DOGE, and he's saying, look, it's just flat out, evident right now that on Trump's 100 days, DOGE failed.
It pains me to say this, but it seems overwhelmingly clear that DOGE failed. It just, none of this is live. I hope, I pray to eat these words. Nothing would make me happier than if I have to come back on the show at some point and go, I got that one wrong. It really did end up working out. But like, what are we talking about here? $2 trillion in cuts. Where are those cuts? Spending is going up.
So spending has gone up. Not only that, the cuts that are made to the IRS are going to make it so that effectively we lose more money than we cut. And if you looked at 100 yards, if they were supposed to go 100 yards, they only got 3 yards. They say 150 billion out of 2 trillion. But in fact, I think the accounting really points it to a hell of a lot less than that. And these cuts that were made are with the collateral damage of 100,000 or so workers that are out of jobs. What's that going to do to the economy? Complete bogus. It was a complete failure, and people are waking up to it. All right, I know it's a lot of heavy news. I'm here to try to sanitize it with some Purell for you guys, but those are your stories of the morning. We'll be back. A lot of content coming your way. Make sure you're subscribed. We appreciate all the new subscribers, and we'll be back this afternoon. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.